So, I love to listen to true crime videos, spooky stories, and podcasts about the strange, dark, and mysterious. Probably more than most, and definitely more than I should. But sometimes your noggin needs a break from all that. So, I decided to tell my own non-scary stories and share them here with all of you. Consider this your safe space to relax, listen, learn, and maybe even drift off to sleep. So settle in, wind down, and cuddle up. And welcome to Non-Crime Storytime. Welcome or welcome back. Come on in. Get comfy. You can close your eyes if you want. And let me tell you a story. This one's called The Ghost Army. The old farmer stepped out into the wet grass at dawn, his trusty German shepherd trotting steadily along at his side. The sun still rising, he squinted to watch his feet in the dark as the two made their familiar trek up the hill to open the gate for today's herding exercises. But just before they met the crest of the pebble-laden trail, the soft patter of paws stopped first. Then the last crunches of the farmer's crinkled leather boots silenced into the approaching day. The morning air caught his breath, which stopped short at the unbelievable sight before him. His thick, wrinkled fingers grabbed at his round, gold-rimmed glasses, and the farmer wiped his lenses on the hem of his jumper. Surely he hadn't just seen what he thought he saw. In the valley below his feet, the familiar landscape's green grasses and dainty wildflowers were now a trampled memory. Instead, the idyllic hill had turned into a factory of destruction. Dozens of battle-scarred tanks were lined up along the waterline. Massive cannons were aimed towards the sky to the north, dotting the ground like dead flower petals. Tents, trucks, and ramshackle shelters looked to house what even the aging rural farmer could estimate could be up to 60,000 American troops. The farmer had done his best to stay out of the messy business of the war, even foregoing his radio to embrace the pastoral privilege of his remote idyllic farm. But as much as he had attempted to avoid it, this Second World War had finally made its way to him. His avoidance once seemed silly, but now it felt dangerous. Perplexingly purveying the new alien landscape below, he had far more questions than answers, and things were about to get far more strange. Seeing sudden movement in the valley, the farmer ducked behind his hilltop barn to continue watching in awe. 4 men in green jumpsuits emerged from a tent, walked determined through the valley's tall grass, gesturing with their hands some grand strategy as they moved towards the formidable formation of tanks. The soldiers' expanding distance muffled their conversation, but didn't do much to ease the nerves of the innocent onlooker. It did, however, leave room in the thick morning humidity for the farmer's audible gasp at what happened next. The 4 men, dressed identically in their allied military fatigues, walked up to one of the colossal, battle-scarred tanks, and each stationed at a corner, as if about to fold the Union Jack itself, lifted the tank off the ground, without even bending a knee. The soldiers' audible laughs and garbled conversation wafted up the mountain and into the farmer's agape mouth as they effortlessly carried the tank 4, 5, 6 paces, and then setting it down in the grass just as easily as they'd picked it up. The farmer's brain simply could not comprehend what it had just seen. What had he missed staying out of the loop this long? Were these some kind of super soldiers? What kind of technology had Churchill, Roosevelt, or God forbid, Hitler himself invented to create this utterly disorienting and nearly indescribable scene? At this overwhelming thought, the farmer turned on his heels and began walking quickly and quietly back down the hill to his farmhouse. The hill's slope made him bounce, shuffle, and kick up dust as he reached his front garden, making his sweaty brow, disheveled shirt tail, and cockeyed glasses all the more dramatic of an effect for his wife to witness as he nearly stumbled into the farmhouse's day-lit kitchen. "Are you all right?" she asked. Resigning himself to the impossibility of describing what he had just seen, the farmer calmly adjusted his glasses atop his curving nose, and doing his best to regain his usually unshakable temperament, stared out the window, up the trail he'd just scurried down. Eyes glued to the hazy middle distance between his simple farmhouse window and the inexplicable mysteries in the valley beyond, he quietly answered, "I think we should turn on the radio." And now, the rest of the story. The members of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops and 3133rd Signal Company Special performed over 20 top-secret missions between 1944 and World War II's conclusion in 1945, earning them the befittingly badass nickname, the Ghost Army. Their mobile stealth operations allowed U.S. General George Patton to paint broad, destructive strokes across Europe in the last year of the war, devastating the Germans and their network of spies who, for some reason, always seemed to be unexpectedly outwitted at the Ghost Army's every turn. This legendary legion held the faltering Allied line at Moselle River, narrowly evaded Nazi POW capture at the Battle of the Bulge, and paved the way for the success of the decisive destruction of D-Day. Their missions sometimes brought them within a quarter-mile of the horrific front lines of battle. In some historians' estimations, the Ghost Army prevented as many as 25,000 casualties that year. To the Germans, the Ghost Army was a real-life battlefield boogeyman battalion of nearly 40,000 battle-hardened soldiers, armed to the teeth with enough firepower and brute force to decide the war at any moment. When in actuality, the Ghost Army was a sideshow of deception, orchestrated by some of the most intelligent and artistically talented the U.S. had to offer. Comprised of soldiers with already heroic names like Bernie Bluestein, Spike Berry, and Fred Fox, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops and 3133rd Signal Company Special was, from its very inception, a literal act of theatrical warfare. The group touted soldiers with an average IQ of 119, with backgrounds far more adept to the art of painting than to the art of war. Servicemen who preferred the mechanical rattle of a sewing machine to that of a machine gun. Ideators obsessed with inflatables, not incendiaries, because, above all else, the Ghost Army was actually performance art, carefully orchestrated, funded, and executed by the Allied military forces with one goal: distract and disarm the Germans with the most realistic fake army ever created. And the show was a great success. To deceive Nazi aerial forces, the Ghost Army created 50 inflatable dummy tanks, strategically positioned and nightly repositioned, to give the impression that the Allies were on the move with immense firepower. To create these feather-light but life-size props, the GIs utilized the same technology and design strategies used to create the magic of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. In 1945's Operation Viersen, the 23rd inflated and strategically positioned 600 inflatable tanks, trucks, and aircraft, making way for Allied troops to move safely towards Normandy Beach. For distant soldiers and spies, 500-pound speakers blasted carefully orchestrated, pre-recorded soundtracks that could give the impression of troop movement and training drills that could be heard up to 15 miles away. In Operation Viersen, sound designers and radio engineers were able to emulate not one, but two separate divisions, tricking any and all spectators into believing this small battalion of just over 1,000 soldiers was actually more than 40,000 strong. For up-close encounters, artists within the 23rd created extremely convincing costumes, including over 40,000 counterfeit shoulder patches for their fellow combatant castmates, ensuring their costume uniforms wouldn't betray their elaborate, elusive endeavor. Talented writers, former community actors, and theatrical directors collaborated to write convincing scripts for emulated radio conversations intended to throw off the enemy's planning. Some were even written to fool townspeople, and any lurking spies, into believing their large order of bread from the local bakery was in preparation of an imminent troop movement. The 23rd was inspired by a similar endeavor performed by the British in North Africa earlier in World War II. But the Ghost Army was a high-production resurrection of the original idea, this time employing fashion designers, set painters, sound designers, voice actors, mechanical engineers, architects, and more to perfectly prepare for the show to end all shows, at least in the theaters of World War II. And thankfully, after more than 20 missions, 4 deaths, 30 wounded, and an estimated 25,000 American servicemen saved, the Ghost Army's efforts and the war in Europe came to an end. After the war, these artists, designers, actors, and engineers returned to their homes and careers, sworn to secrecy about every detail of the Ghost Army, even its mere existence. But in 1996, the Ghost Army was officially declassified, and the world learned their extraordinary story, unfortunately, after many of its members had already passed away. In 2024, the Ghost Army was officially honored by Congress and given the Congressional Medal of Honor. Today, the Ghost Army Legacy Project shares and celebrates the immeasurable efforts and unforgettable story of the larger-than-life inflatable infantry that saved lives, ended a war, and inspired the world with their art, ingenuity, and bravery.